We heard from Kristen. Are we good? I'm sure we are. I just never
We good? Yep.
Okay. All right. So the last department head evaluation we have is Chief Wagner, who has asked that the meeting be open rather than the typical closed. That is his right to do, so we will do that. Just one note is that if there are any concerns or anything that's being addressed that might be considered private data regarding an employee or other issue, that is private data. We can't discuss that in an open forum. So we just need to be cautious about that as the discussion unfolds. So with that, I did have the opportunity to review. Tarek made all of the evaluations available to us before the meeting, and then we've got copies here as well. So I did review the chief's evaluation. Biggest issue noted on there is, don't know what that call was, they can go to voicemail, was regarding the administration of the canine program and how certain things were handled with that. I agree with Mr. Alrafai's assessment that could have and should have been handled better. There are issues there that, in my opinion, could have been addressed earlier before they spun, for lack of a better term, out of control. I'm also concerned with complaints that I've heard from local business owners that calls aren't being followed up on or responded to. I received a complaint that a local business manager filed or called in a suspected victim of sex trafficking, and instead of responding, she saw you drive past twice and then gave her a phone call. That's concerning to me because responding to local businesses is something that we talked about last year. And it concerns me that that's not being addressed. I have questions regarding the chain of command. Through various meetings that we've had, discussions stemming over the last 13, 14 months, I have heard a lot about the importance of officers following the chain of command, and it doesn't seem to apply to the chief. And that concerns me because when the last city administrator was here, it seemed like very few things went through her. There was no hesitation to call the council when something needed to be addressed. Recently, rather than discussing the emergency management director position with Tarek, you just told Stearns County that you were going to be in charge of that. And it's my understanding that Tarek didn't know that conversation was had until it came here to council. So that's a concern that I have and something that we need to work on. I know the community has concerns about public outreach. I think there's some merit to that, although admittedly there have been great steps made in public outreach. I don't have a position on that. I do have some concerns about not working, and I don't mean that in that you're not doing things. I mean a working chief versus a desk chief, and not being out there patrolling, doing things like that, being visible in the community in that way. I do acknowledge that you've taken significant steps in reaching out to local business owners and things like that. So those are some of the concerns that I have. So I see that you're taking notes. I'll look to Jean to see if you have any other concerns. I'll just go around the table and then we can address each of them if you want, Paul.
Some of the things that I had on my list are the same things you had, Sean. One of my biggest concerns has been the fact that we have had such a large turnover in officers over the whole 9 years. Since the time Paul started, we have lost an officer every year. And I know for a fact, I know like one was retirement. Well, I know he retired a little sooner than planned just because he was having issues. And I'm not sure that, but it just, to me, shows as a leadership problem when you constantly have to be having officers leave. And some of it's legitimate. I mean, a lot of them are probably just, okay, it's time for me to go somewhere else, especially when you're a new officer. The other thing is, there's other neighboring communities that don't want to deal with our police chief. They'd rather just use the sheriff or contact another department. I've heard that from a couple of different ones. And another one I have is working, and this is because I am connected to the fire department, I admit it, but they don't feel there's much camaraderie. They just feel like you're the police and they're the fire department, and we aren't working together very well. And that, and they used to do joint trainings on first responder, and none of that is being done anymore. So, and I also agreed on the working chief. You know, I've been around a long time. We've always had a chief that patrolled, and then when the office we got so much administration, then we had to hire a secretary to do all that. So that would be my goal, is in a small town, you have to be out there in the public. That's all there is to it. And that the community is not happy. I mean, we get complaints all the time, and I just feel, you know, in a way we were elected by the community, and they're the ones that say maybe it's time to go and do something different. So I'm just, that's what I have so far.
Paul?
Do you have any?
It would be my hope that we could go off of facts presented to us, and if those opinions that are true, Gene, then I would like to see them be substantiated. I know that this is a small town. Talk is cheap around the coffee shops, and everyone's got a complaint. But I don't really see the issue of the chief not working. The one prior did not do a lot of, he did a lot of desk work. So I guess it's a matter of in the job description. And to tell you the truth, I think I would rather have a chief that's not going to belly up to you at the bar and try to gain friends or favors along the way. I would rather have a chief that is just going to be here to do the business and stay the chief. And I would also like somewhere along the way have this be dug into deeper. This was brought up on a very short notice, and I believe that, and for all due respect with the people of Painesville, that they need to trust the chief of police, but the chief also needs to trust the city council. And if we're not going to trust him, then we're not going to get another chief of police, because no one's going to want to come here and work with a target on their back. And that's why it's my position that, sure, we could get somebody better, but we could also get somebody a lot worse. And now that's the choice that we're going to have to make. And it's not...
Well, there hasn't been any motion about moving anything. And I will just note, since I just got a message from somebody, that we are being broadcast on Channel 8, and that's just to remind everyone who's listening that that was at the chief's request for this review.
Okay.
They're done closed, but he asked for it to be open. So right now it's just sort of, what are your thoughts on the review as far as the information that's been in there?
The thoughts on the review, some of it's going to reflect COVID. Some of it is going to reflect a difference in personality. I disagree with some of the stuff that's happening here, but I would rather feel comfortable living in a community with the chief of police and the police officers having our back, instead of having this chaos and drama that we've been accustomed to. So that's where I'm going to stay with this.
All right, thank you. Neil?
There is room for improvement on the review. And maybe we need to come up with a committee or something on policing and some criteria of what we expect, and to try to help the department meet our objectives. And I guess that would be something to consider. A lot of this is probably about personality, and that's hard to change. Not everybody's a huggy, make you feel good person, myself included. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Megan?
As far as I'm aware, I agree with Neil about the committee, and I believe that the chief has asked for that a few times, if I'm correct. Yes?
I have.
Asked for that, so I think that would be a good idea. Just as far as some of the issues, and I'm not saying again that there aren't issues, but the ones that I see are workable, frankly. And I guess I'm just confused as to how we've arrived at this point, when there was a performance improvement plan in place beginning in October of 2020, which was reevaluated at the 30, 60, and 90-day mark. And the chief was found to be making adequate progress in achieving his set goals each time. And also, I've been kind of digging into the issues with recruitment and retention. I've reached out to about a half dozen police departments who serve similar sized communities to ours in the past month or so. And there is not a one that I've spoken with that has hired an officer in the last decade that has been around for more than 3-4 years at most. So it may be an issue that but it is not a unique issue by any means. Rural policing is understaffed, and it's just and some of these departments, they have had positions open for months, and these are departments that have higher pay, better benefits, sometimes more opportunity to advance within the department. So, and my concern, and that we're just discussing the review at this point, is that I think everybody here kind of knows that if there are roads we could choose to go down, but then, we won't be looking to hire 1 or 2 officers, we'll be looking to hire 5 or more. And I guess I am not willing to gamble the safety of this community and put us in a vulnerable position over what I see as workable issues. And I think too, it's kind of hard, when you've had officers who have been injured and you've been training and it's a pandemic and you've had a string of, 4 homicides or homicide, proceeding that have been cleared. I think, I guess you driving around and being seen in public I can see how that could take a back seat, especially, there's no administrative assistant, so again, I see them as workable issues, and I've read the review, I've had many meetings, I've gone on a ride-along, I've read objective reports by outsiders, and unless there's some glaring issue that I am not seeing, which I'm, more than willing to be educated on, I'm confused as to how we got to this point, especially given that the people we were elected to represent in town, we want to do something. If we want to move the mobile home park, if we want to, bring in sober homes, whatever, they contact us with their fears about drugs and crime, and those fears are valid. And I'm not understanding how the narrative could switch so quickly to, drugs and crime are such a problem, yet it's fine if we are, going to have to contract out the entire police department or spend years trying to fill these positions. And again, I'm just not, over these workable issues, I am not willing to put the community in a vulnerable position or be out potentially hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars looking to change things. That's kind of what I have.
Okay. Chief, I know you were taking notes, so I don't think I need to reiterate, because I doubt that mine are as detailed as yours.
They probably are. You're an attorney, Sean. You take good notes, sure.
I guess those are my concerns. I know that some of them have your comments in here already, so I have read those. I don't know if you want to hit on what you've said in the review already, or the floor is yours.
So I do have a prepared statement. I don't know that I'm prepared to make that as of yet. Some of these things are a little bit of a concern. You know, if people don't come and talk to me, there's nothing I can do to solve the problem. This allegation or, you know, statements being made about somebody reporting possible sex trafficking and it not even being looked into and a phone call being made. If it's the incident I'm thinking about, that particular situation was dealt with and handled. I'm not sure what, you know, is it possible the follow-up wasn't there with the original caller? It's possible. But considering this department was one of the first in this county to actually identify an individual in our community that was sex trafficking young women, and as I was, you know, one of the integral parts of that in determining that and providing that information to the task force for Stearns County and in this area, quite honestly, I take offense to somebody without any knowledge as to what actually happened or even following up to see what happened, making any type of allegation like that. I think, you know, I'm not going to, at this point, get in real in-depth, Sean, to, you know, on the canine stuff. You and I have had plenty of conversations, as I have with numerous council members on that. As I've discussed before in the past, when it comes to the turnover of this agency, we've had turnover. We did have, and I'll be honest, it was a great year, sort of. You know, 2015 is the only year, for an entire year, we had full staff. You know, and it was nice not having that turnover. It was nice not having that. However, when you sit back and you look at the staff that have left this department and you look at the average, officers are staying and have stayed here. They've stayed here for 3 to 4 years, on average. There have been a few that left sooner. Carter and Colin are the anomalies. They left before that 2-year mark. Everybody else was here either more than that or just shy of that 3-year mark. So, you know, when you put those all together, they're at that. We had 3 officers that left for other agencies. We also have had a stretch of officers that we've had to work through issues with that ultimately decided to resign and are no longer in law enforcement. As the head of this department and the chief and the one responsible for public safety, I'm responsible for addressing issues that I have with staff. And if my staff is not doing their job, it is my responsibility to address them. As I told Tarek during my review, I fully acknowledge the one part, and that's what I think is extremely important to remember here, is in this review, there is one part of the administration of this department which was not addressing an issue before it got out of hand. I fully acknowledge that. I've also explained as to the circumstances and behind why that happened, how it happened. And I've also explained that there were steps that were taken, but no matter what step I took, there was no way to address it. There was no way to deal with it. But as far as the rest of the administration of this department, I'm meeting the expectations set forth by this council, set forth by my job description. So, you know, as far as that goes, we've talked about it. I've already discussed with Tarek the steps that are being taken to make sure we are not in that situation again. And I don't think we're going to have any issues. We've had a run, for a while. We had the highest per capita homicide rate probably in a lot of places. 4 homicides in 2.5 years. And for this agency, an agency of our size, yes, while working with Stearns County Sheriff's Office as partners, because we clearly don't have the staff, to be able to run that full investigation, we not only cleared every single one of those cases. We identified that probably would have been missed. by a lot of agencies, and we've identified that. And we've received convictions on 3 of those 4, and I have no doubt the 4th one will result in a conviction as well. That is something to be said for an agency our size to be able to do that, to be able to recognize those things, bring those to conclusions, and swift conclusions at that. I don't know that there was one of these cases that we didn't have wrapped up relatively quickly, and that's a testament to the people in this department, you know, and the officers that were here at the time and the officers that were part of that. I understand, Gene, that there's some friction with the fire department. I'll be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea where that comes from. I know there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of comments and statements that have been made in the past. There are flat-out lies. We talked the other day, you informed me that there was a rumor out there that my officers have said that they can't wait to arrest a firefighter for a DWI. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm sitting here now to tell you, and you can ask any one of these guys here and ask all of them, there isn't a single officer in our agency that's ever made that statement, nor would they. Because the reality is these are guys that we go, you know, into situations shoulder to shoulder with, and why would we ever want to impact, you know, that relationship or say, geez, I really can't wait to arrest those guys. Those are some of the worst cases we have to deal with, because these are the people that we're out there, you know, dealing with injured passengers of vehicles and motorists. We're out there dealing with, you know, fires of homes. To sit there and make a statement like that, it just boggles my mind. And quite honestly, it really disappoints me that there's somebody within this community that is so irresponsible to even say that. And to, you know, to sit here and tarnish, you know, the reputation of the officers of this department. We have a department right now that works well. For the first time in 4 years, this department is cohesive. We have 4 full-time officers and our part-time guys who are all working towards the same goal. They are all working, you know, for the betterment of this community. Every single one of them enjoys working here. I know because they've all told me, as is evident by their presence here this evening. We all get along, and we all are excited about what we can provide as far as public safety to this community. As Neil said, I'm not warm and fuzzy. I'm not cuddly. That's not me. That's not my personality. I describe myself probably more as a tactician. My skill set is in management and case investigation. If anybody has any questions on that, I would encourage you to contact the Chippewa County Sheriff's Office and the Clara City PD. Just even on the recent case we dealt with a stolen vehicle. They will tell you, you know, the work that was done by this department. So it is a little confusing to me, this comment about neighboring communities, you know, and how neighboring communities will seek assistance from the sheriff's office. We have a very good working relationship with the Belgrade Police Department and Cold Spring, and they are our 2 closest agencies. However, the Paynesville Police Department is not the primary backing agency for any other agency out there. That is the Stearns County Sheriff's Office, the Candy Ojai County Sheriff's Office, the Meeker County Sheriff's Office, not the Paynesville Police Department. So I would be interested to know, considering the tight working relationships that we have with our neighboring communities here in Stearns County, exactly which communities are saying that they don't want to work with us because of the chief of police. Because the reality is we have good working relationships with the agencies around us, even though we are not the primary agency. We handle many of their calls. We handle many of the calls out in the township. You know, we talked the other day, Sean, about the complaints in the community. And I've explained repeatedly that you know, I've heard that complaint. I've heard the complaints that I'm not approachable. The interesting thing is that nobody's approached me. And yes, I spend more time at my desk than I want to. Why? Because we've been short-staffed. We've been down since October. The administrative position, which puts that on my shoulders to do, and I know it goes beyond that. I know it goes in before that. But what I think is, if you don't work in law enforcement, I think what's hard for people to understand and realize is, if you're not the one who's responsible for making sure the department's running, making sure that the guys are doing all of their casework and that the quality of that casework meets the expectations of this department, making sure that the day-to-day general functions of the department are being completed, on top of doing the clerical work, on top of being responsible for patrol, on top of all of the different things that we do from, for lack of a better term, event planning and party planning when it comes to Shop with a Cop and the Night 2 Night community picnic and everything else. These are all things that take time. And unfortunately, at some point, something has to give. And for me, it is far more important that we are providing services to this community that, and we are keeping this community safe, which is ultimately the primary responsibility of the police department, than to be walking up and down Main Street, you know, shaking hands on a daily basis and putting those important things that really affect the citizens of our community to the side. I can't do that. I understand that that is not the chiefs that have been here before me, the mindset of, I'm going to focus on that. I know those guys were out there. I know those guys were well-liked in this community because they got out, they shook the hands, they did all those things. But my focus is on keeping this community safe. And when you look at what this department has accomplished over the last 9 years, we have an extremely low crime rate as it relates to property crimes. We got a high homicide rate, which is extremely unfortunate, but the person crimes are things that we can't address. But what we can address is making sure we're clearing them when they come up. You know, we have seen an increase in drugs, and we can ask our evidence tech here exactly how many, you know, cases we've had entered into our evidence locker this year alone. And I'm willing to bet we've probably surpassed every year over the last several years, just this year alone, by the job that these guys sitting right here are doing. You know, and it's the ones sitting right here that are doing it and working together to make sure that that happens. You know, I am not perfect. I will never claim to be perfect, despite what my wife might say, that she thinks I think I'm perfect. That's not the case. I'm not perfect. There are things I can work on. There are things I can do better. I have repeatedly told this council that absolutely I want to be out in the public more. When I first got here, I got out in the public more. I didn't have to spend as much time in my office. But times in law enforcement have drastically shifted and changed. We are not in the same environment we were 10 years ago. We are not in the same environment we were 23 years ago when I started this line of work. Because when I started this line of work, we were responsible for public safety. Yes, we had our community outreach, we had our community-based policing stuff, but largely that was it. Today, we are therapists, we are doctors, we are parents, you know, we are teachers, you name it, we do it. Because when somebody doesn't want to deal with something, who do they call? They call law enforcement. Unfortunately, those things take time. And as much as I want to be out there, until we stabilize the department, we have a secretary, we have a full staff, it's going to be tough. I am making those efforts to do that. I have made those efforts to do it with the bi-monthly meetings. And at the end of the day, you know, I hope to see those things expand and grow. We know one of the, you know, through my business, I've learned the power of social media and how much, you know, just a Facebook page and putting out information is there. Anyone who's been in my office knows one of the things under the to-do list. And, you know, the things that we want to do is create a more robust Facebook page, or create a Facebook page for that matter, you know, where we have an opportunity to get out to, you know, the public and communicate with them, to, you know, create a more robust web page so that people have, you know, have the ability to, you know, communicate with us better. One of the biggest things that's lacking here is communication. And the tough part when it comes to me being approachable or people not trusting me is I ask this council, why don't they trust me? And I don't know that I have the answer for that, because I come into work every day and I do my job with honor, integrity, and I hold my guys to that same standard. We have cleared significant major cases in this department. We have created long-lasting, sustainable community programs. We have worked with our state legislators to give us a funding source and allow us the opportunity to be able to fundraise for these things so that we can do these programs, we can put these things on. Every one of these officers sitting here, every single year are given, at the end of the year, a sheet to give me their goals for the next year. These are not my goals, these are their goals, what they want to accomplish. And every single one of them is encouraged to put a community outreach event on there. Unfortunately, every single year something comes up. You know, 2020 was a pandemic. You know, these are things that we have, you know, we have plans to do. There are things and stuff that are in the works to get done. I see good things not only for this community, but for this, you know, for this police department. We are in the midst of a hiring process right now to bring in a positive team member into our department that complements this staff, that wants to make this community better and work with us and be a team member to make this community better and to make it better for every single resident in this community. There are positive things happening, and that, you know, this is the first time it's been that way for 4 years. So do I see these things changing? Absolutely. Do I see that review as a reflection of this? No, it's a reflection of the time, and it's a reflection of isolated incidences that I don't see happening again. And, you know, obviously I have my staff here. I encourage anybody on this council to speak with my staff. There isn't one of these guys here, you know, that will tell you that they don't want to work for me. And if they do, and if they tell you that, then we've got a different conversation to have. But they're not going to, because I've talked with every single one of them. You know, we talk about the retention, and you talk about Bruce. You know, Bruce retired in 2018, so roughly, you know, 6 years after I got here. And Bruce had intentions of retiring long before that. But he didn't, and he stayed. And not only did, you know, Bruce retire, I got Bruce to come back. After the phone call consisted of, hey, Bruce, no. I didn't even ask you anything yet. He came back, and not only did he come back, 3 other retired officers came back to assist this agency, 3 of which are still here today, 3 of which all enjoy working for this department and for myself. So am I going to sit here and tell you we're not going to have an officer leave in the next year? No, because quite honestly, any number of incidents could happen in these guys' lives that they decide to leave and that they decide to move on. But we've had officers move on because they didn't want to do their job anymore, and law enforcement wasn't in their heart, and those officers aren't in law enforcement. And as an administrator, when we look at turnover, that's what I should be doing. If we have somebody who is jeopardizing the safety of our citizens, and we can't get them back to where they need to be, then as a city, as a supervisor, we need to move in a direction so that we can keep our people safe and that we can keep them safe. Because if their heart's not into it, they're out there and they're jeopardizing their safety. So yeah, we've had some turnover, but there's a lot of agencies that have had turnover. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of our business. So I guess from there, you know, I would yield any additional time at this point to any of the folks here that would like to add any comments or discussion on that.
So I just want to clarify, the concerns that I raised are not with the department. That we're not here for a department evaluation. These are not concerns that I have with any of the officers. I did ask Tarek to make sure, and I hope that he does this either tonight or tomorrow, that all the officers who are here tonight are being paid for their time. I'm sure that none of you have signed it, punched in or anything like that, but I think that that's important. One exception.
I signed it, yeah.
Yeah. So I did ask for that. This is not about the department. I think we've got excellent cops. It's about some concerns that I have. One thing that you mentioned tonight, Paul, that we talked about the other day as well, is there was nothing I could have done to prevent a situation, and I disagree with that. Because if a performance improvement plan, if corrective action is needed for an officer, that needs to be done. And if it's not, if the city administrator won't let it happen, you have to go to the council. If the council's not letting it happen, you have to go to a policies and procedures. You have to do something. And the truth is that with the particular individual that we're thinking of, I didn't know anything about it, despite having been on policies and procedures for over a year before something came to my attention. And if the city administrator at the time were stonewalling something, it could have come to us. It could have been addressed, and it wasn't. And that gives me concern about what might happen in the future. The biggest issue in the review is employee management. It's in here multiple times, and preventing things from spiraling out of control. And I get it, it wasn't a great situation. I understand. But I have not seen anything where there was an email sent to the past city administrator that said, hey, this is what we talked about. I understand you're not willing to do it, but here's where I stand. You didn't reach out. I was chair of policies and procedures the whole time. I didn't hear anything until just before the election that there was an issue. We also talked about, you mentioned a couple of officers who left, and on Friday, one of the things, you said there was an officer who left in order to prevent any sort of implication that they had been stealing from the city. I reached out to 2 former members of the council who were on at the time that officer left, and neither one of them knew anything about that. Both of them indicated that officer left for other reasons. So I don't know that.
There's a very large file sitting in the city files, along with multiple hard drives to back that up. And no, the city didn't know about it because the individual left before it got to their level. And what the former city administrator chose or chose not to share with the council, I can't say anything about that.
Okay.
At the end of the day, when I say there's nothing I could do, you saw the reaction that was received when it was perceived that I went over that individual's head for the police department's wellness program. So I ask you, when you look at that, and I tell you, there's very little I could do. While there were things that were done, and I fully admit, it should have been addressed sooner. It was addressed sooner. Nothing was done. It wasn't addressed in a formal PIP or anything like that, but it was addressed. And at the end of the day, to do anything above that would have gone nowhere. I would have gotten the same response I got when the wellness program was brought forward, which was a very loud, angry, yell at me over the phone, and before I could get a word in, hang up on me conversation.
I guess that segues into the other thing that I wanted to just address, is what you said was nobody approaches you. And the thought that first comes to my mind is, does nobody approach you because they think it's not going to go anywhere? Because that is what the local business owner who talked to me about the sex trafficking call said, is I don't call because it doesn't go anywhere. I don't do these things because it doesn't go anywhere. And how do we fix that?
There's definitely communication, Sean, that has to be better. But just because they believe it doesn't go anywhere, doesn't mean it doesn't go anywhere. You know, as a prosecutor, you know there are things that cannot be discussed, and there are things in cases that, you know, we will not discuss with the public. And I understand that that creates a frustration at times. But, you know, some of these things, if they don't go anywhere, it's probably because there was nothing there, or they just don't know what the actual outcome is. And there's just times when, I'm sorry, but the community is not going to be privy to that information. You know, yes, there are things that we can do to be better. There are always things that we can do to be better. Always. Every single one of us. None of us are perfect. And, you know, much like the corrective action plan that I was put on back in October, as I told Tarek and at that time administrator or co-administrator Ludwig and Mergen, there are two ways I could have taken that. I could have curled up in a ball, been really ticked off, and, you know, just said this is stupid. Or I could take that and look at it as an opportunity to be better, which is exactly what I did, which is, you know, exactly where I stepped out and said, okay, I see these areas that, you know, they're saying that I need to be better. And I did, you know, as demonstrated by the successful completion of that corrective action plan. So I take these things, much like this review, as an opportunity to be better. You know, if people don't, you know, it's like I've told it, you know, we had a situation a while back where the Legion, you know, came to us. It really didn't come to me, but it came to me through a third-party channel stating that our staff was, you know, targeting the Legion and that I had directed them to target the Legion, saying that they were sitting and monitoring the business. Again, I will sit here and unequivocally tell you that the officers of this department would never do that, because it is made clear from day one that if that is the kind of behavior that they are going to engage in, they are not going to work in this department. That is unethical, it is unmoral, and I will not tolerate that type of behavior. And I told the Legion and you know, told them when they brought this, and it finally got brought forth to me, that if they have these concerns, they need to talk to me. We have camera systems in our squad cars, and if somebody says one of my officers is sitting monitoring, you know, the Legion or Queen Bees or any other establishment in this, you know, in this city, a simple phone call the next day will allow me more than enough time to record what was going on in that squad car at the time that they're claiming they're doing it, which will give me more than enough time to be able to say, oh, you know what, you're right, they are, and I have an issue I need to deal with. Or, well, I show that they're on the complete other side of town at this time that you say they were doing this, and in fact, the video shows that they were never there. So, anybody who knows me knows I'll talk to anybody at any time about anything. And usually it's probably going to be a really long conversation. So I'm happy to answer anything. I asked for this meeting to be open because I don't have anything to hide. I stand behind my decisions. I stand behind my mistakes. Again, I'm not perfect. Can I be better? Absolutely. I need to figure out how to be more like a teddy bear and a little less like a cactus. But at the end of the day, there are things that we can all do to be better. And I understand, Sean, that these are things that you say about my performance. I bring this department up and I bring the stuff about this department because at the end of the day, the workings of this department and how this department functions, runs, and provides services to the community is a direct reflection on my leadership. And if these guys are out there and they're doing their job and they are doing everything possible to keep this community safe and they're doing work at a high level, I don't know that there's any more I can ask. There has yet to be a time in my career here where I have been told by this council or anybody else, you need to go do this. And I flat out looked at this council and said, I don't think so. I come here, I do my job every single day. I do what this council asks for me. I try and meet those goals as quickly as I can that they establish. Sometimes it's easier than others, but at the end of the day, I do everything in my power to provide the best service to this city, to this council, and to this department that I can.
Or on the table again, I started with myself. Jean, did you have any follow-up?
No, not at this time.
Paul?
Not at this time.
Neil?
I would like to look into this commission that we talked about.
Okay, let's talk about that in a second. Any further thing on the evaluation?
No.
Okay, Megan?
Nope.
Okay, that's all I have for the evaluation. Hearing nothing further, I think we can close the evaluation period. At this time, if we were in a closed session, I would reopen the public session, just for the minutes to reflect, Jennifer, so that you have them. We were in closed session from, by my clock, 6:39 through 6:50, where we discussed Bill Ludwig and Ron Mergen's evaluations. Have not taken any action on those since then. Right, so at this point, I know Neil had talked about some sort of a commission or something to that effect.
We still need to approve them.
Yep, so why don't we start with the evaluations themselves? I don't know if you want to do them all together separately.
I would do it separately because I plan to abstain from Mr. Ludwig's.
Fair enough, okay. Why don't we just start with Bill, since he was first? Is there a motion on Bill's evaluation?
I'll make the motion to approve Bill Ludwig's evaluation as stated.
Second.
We have a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Soini, to approve Bill Ludwig's evaluation. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? None. One abstention. Okay. Then Mr. Mergen. Is there a motion regarding Ron's evaluation?
I'll make the motion to approve Ron Mergen's department head performance evaluation.
Okay. We have a motion by Soini. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen to approve Ron Mergen's evaluation. Any further discussion on that one? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? None. That carries. Okay. Then on to the chief's evaluation. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve Chief Wagner's evaluation.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Brick. Seconded by Soini. Any further discussion on that? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That carries. Okay. So we have some other things that were discussed as far as the committee, things like that. I don't know if a motion's going to be made, but I will just remind us that we also want to discuss whether or not evaluations come back to council next year, or if those should first stop at policies and procedures. So just, that's out there. I don't know if, policies and procedures can do fine. My thought is, I think it helps for department heads to get a little bit more feedback, since we do interact a little bit more one-on-one with the department heads. But it is nice to just treat them all the same as well.
I agree.
I thought this was good. I think the biggest thing is to not slip back and not doing them. They have to be done every year.
Yep. So do we want to continue doing them as a council, or
I would make that a recommendation.
are you moving as such?
Yes.
Yep.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Brick, for the council to continue doing department head performance evaluations. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. All right. Then with that concluded and hearing no further business before the council, we do stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
We didn't want to talk about the commission.
Oh, did you want to talk about that further, or
I can.
alternatively, when's our next policies meeting, Jennifer? 14th? That could go there.
And if it's okay, I can give you an idea of conceptually what I've discussed in the past and what I'm looking for. Obviously, through the years, there's been, for whatever reason, rumors, gossip, lies, whatever, that have come out about the police department. Having a police commission gives us essentially a non-binding unit that consists of business owners, community members, potentially, one, or more council members, city administration, the opportunity, and potentially even an officer, the opportunity to openly discuss some of those things. When rumors and stuff like that go unchecked, they take on a life of their own, and they create a level of distrust in the community that is extremely difficult to deal with. So this police commission can be something that meets once a month. They can come down and have coffee with me on Tuesdays or whatever days I decide to do it on. But it's something that, really will act as a liaison between the police department and the community so that we get a better understanding of where are we falling short, where are we not falling short. And it gives us that direct line to the public and to the business owners and residents of our community.
I think it's a good idea.
I think so too. I think that, so I had gone on a ride along and I had posted about that on social media, and I got a lot of feedback from the community about it, and they had a lot of questions. When they talked about there not being a social media presence by the police and how much they would enjoy that, or, how it would be great to clarify things. So I think it's a good idea. And I think there are plenty of people who would want to help or would have some of the skills that are needed for that kind of a thing.
During the library meeting, there was discussion of meeting with the council for a discussion point. I'm thinking if the library folks, and now we're looking at some sort of a police commission, those sound like great working session items.
Yeah? Get out that calendar, Jim. Let's see what
Right.
we got.
You gotta have a working session to plan, figure out how you're gonna do it.
How about the third week of July?
Monday is out. Wednesday is out.
He meant 2022.
Now, September, it sounds a lot better.
We're on the chicken timeline. No.
We do have a fifth Thursday in July, like the 29th. We don't typically have a fifth Thursday, which frees up that day. For the fourth Thursday is the 22nd. for a day that I'm gone.
The 5th Thursday is the 29th?
It is.
Sweet, my birthday's on Friday.
The 30th is a Friday.
3-day weekend for me.
All right, gotta celebrate.
Okay, I'm good with the 29th.
The last weekend's out for me, I'm gone.
Not on the 29th though, that's a Thursday.
On the 29th, I am. I have vacation that whole week.
Okay, 22nd?
The 22nd is open, it's a Thursday. That week we have planning at night, EDAP the next morning on the 20th, 21st, policies and procedures, police department interviews, and the 22nd is open.
Okay.
Not for me.
22nd's no go for you?
Neither is 20th.
Okay?
We can have one group here.
Yeah,
Is that inappropriate?
How about the 13th?
No, I
I feel like we will
Is it
get
a
some thoughts
Friday?
and feelings out of it.
13th, Tuesday.
Okay. The 13th should work for me. I know I said before that if it does, then I'm gonna be in a very bad mood, and I'm looking like I'm going to be in a very bad mood, because that trial's probably not gonna go forward. At least not on that date. So 13th should work.
So should we tentatively set the working session to discuss the library and the police commission for,
Don't we have a hearing on the 12th?
Yeah, that's Monday night. That's our.
so Monday you would be here in the same room, and then you'd come back and arrange it here again on the 13th.
Okay.
Bring a sleeping bag or a snack.
Nope, 1 hour.
No.
Okay, 13th.
guys.
I feel like there's something, but I don't know, to it.
Thanks, everyone. We are adjourned.
Gee, I thought you sold wine supplies at your shop.
I do.